Welcome to the Nick Fong Podcast. As the broker and owner of Ronival Real Estate, Nick has spent nearly 20 years in Baja, California, Sur. And in this podcast, he'll be talking everything Baja, from food and culture to real estate and property management. And now, here's your host, Nick Fong.
All right, we're back at the Nick Fong Podcast. I have two guests, Aaron Cuha to my left and Greg Willis to the right. Greg, our sales manager extraordinaire at Ronival Real Estate, and Aaron Cuha, who has a lot of real estate experience. But today is not about real estate. It's about something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, and that's Cabo, the Baja. And so these two guys are to my left and right because they have a lot of experience. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
When was the first time you came to the Baja?
I came here first in 1977. I was 8 years old.
And what brought you in 77?
You know, my father had, I was a little out of control as a youth, and my father had read a book called Islands in the Stream by Ernest Hemingway, where he puts his grandson on a marlin and turns him into a man, you know, fighting a fish, hands and feet bleeding. And my dad's like, I'm gonna settle this boy down.
And what happened on that trip?
It was I caught 2 marlin. It was great. My dad caught a dorado. I got lost here in the town till like midnight. My dad called the police and had called the State Department. I mean, it was pretty crazy. It was awesome. It made me fall in love with Baja.
Cool. So you were 8 years old, 1977. Greg, you have a little bit of a different story. When was the first time you came?
Well, I got here in 1981 on a boat. And I had really not heard about Cabo that much until about 1979. I moved out to California. I wanted to take a year off from college, kind of see the world. And I was walking down the dock one day in San Diego, and I saw this boat named Cabo Fever. And I asked a friend of mine, what does that mean? And he told me, well, unless you go there, you'll never understand. So I was running boats at that time. I decided I'm going to get on the next boat I could coming down here, and I did. And I got down here in May of 1981, and I'll never forget the moment I came around that arch, you know, and you see that magnificent arch, Lover's Beach, the bay, and there was nothing like it I'd ever seen in the world. You know, I mean, it was like this magical place that nobody really had discovered. There's very few people, as Aaron saw when he got here. You know, it was just a few hotels, 3 or 4 very small hotels, but more to do and more excitement going on with just all kinds of adventures and activities and things you could explore that very few places in the world have. And that definitely lit my candle. I came back the next year, I moved here, and I've never looked back. It's by far and away the best place I've ever found.
Yeah, so you've been here full-time for 40 years.
Yep.
And originally a boat captain, now real estate sales manager. So, Aaron, when was your next trip back? You were 8 years old in 77.
Yeah, we came back every year. So we came back every year, once a year after that. And then by the mid to late 80s, we were coming 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, as we matured and had more success, I bought a 42-foot Riviera and brought my boat down here. And I was a pilot, so I would just fly down every weekend. You know,
Wow.
this was our home.
Yeah.
They caught Cabo Fever.
We caught Cabo Fever.
That's really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When Hacienda Medano first started building, we were number 1 on the list to buy a place in Hacienda Medano. I mean, with Medano, it was we're like, this is going to be where we spend, you know, our retirement years.
And so that was like 15 years ago, something like that.
2002, 2005, that range.
And so that's what brought you here. But when did you actually move here?
We moved here in December of 2020.
Okay.
We'd always plan on spending some time here, having a place here. We were in Prague when the country shut down due to COVID, and had to fly back in the middle of the night. And we knew really quickly that we didn't want to spend that time in the U.S. We would much rather be someplace where we're comfortable, where, you know, we feel like it's more conducive to our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so we came here.
Yeah. Wow. And so, Greg, in that 40 years, did you ever move back to the States?
Never.
You never?
I vacationed a few times. But,
Okay.
You know, even after I got here, my parents were asking me, well, are you ever going to come back to college? And it was hard to explain to them why I wasn't going to come back. But eventually, first my mother came out here, and then my dad, and they knew. When they got here, there was just like, wow, I can understand. And,
How old were you when you first?
When I first got here, I was 23 years old.
Wow. Yeah. So quick math. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Add it up. I'm almost 64. So. But been the best part of my life, definitely being here. I've raised my family here, and I couldn't have done anything better with my direction.
So you talked about off camera, just like the things you can do here. What do you do?
Well, originally, when I first got here, what was amazing is I could surf, fish, explore, just do anything I wanted to. That it was kind of like I grew up in Florida. My grandparents were there very early on, like 1915. I think they had the first house, one of the first houses in Palm Beach, Florida.
1950.
1915.
15.
Yeah, in Florida. So my grandfather always told me, if you ever find some place like this, don't leave. And it was really weird. He told me, I've always remembered that. He was in real estate too. And so that went through my mind, of course, when I got here. And it's, if you could have been in Florida back in, the 1920s or something, imagine all the things you could have explored. Mm-hmm. Fishing was great, unspoiled, all these things. And then it got very crowded over the years, a lot of development. But here, the magic in Cabo is that there's so much wide open space. It's the last frontier left in North America, it really is. But with more things to do, and better weather and all the things we talk about, and easier to get to than any other place. And to me, that was the real magic. I could go do anything I want. I love to surf. I could go all over Baja, nobody out.
Yeah.
I would go out hiking, exploring, doing things that you always dreamed of as a kid, but never really could do it because, suburbia is everywhere in the United States. And the only place you could do is the national parks. Here, it was like a giant national park all to yourself.
Well, I've known you for a number of years, and what Greg has told me about, like, fossil hunting, going into caves, into the mountains. Tell us a little bit about that kind of stuff. The surfing, the golf, the boating, we all know about, but these kind of stories.
Baja is kind of like, it's like a National Geographic special edition, right? There are so many unbelievable places to explore, like where the cave paintings are, the petroglyphs. There's big fossil areas. There's just beautiful geology and landscapes here, extinct volcanoes, and on and on. So if you like to get out and explore and do things that is a lot more, I don't know, on your own, not with big groups of people, guided
Mm-hmm.
tours kind of things. You just want to go by yourself or take your family. That's what's amazing about Baja. You can go all over the state. It's very safe, and it never ends. It never finishes surprising you. You're always seeing something new and discovering something new, and the story just keeps getting better. It seems like as you go along. So, yeah.
How are you going to top that, Aaron?
It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. But what do you like to do in the area?
When we wrap here, I'll jump in the Jeep and I'll find an empty beach somewhere and I'll open up the rooftop tent and have a really nice weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's nice there too. You can take a Jeep, which is great. You can go anywhere here, and there's all these dirt roads, mountain roads, and beach roads, and you can go to places that you won't see anybody for a few days, and they're not very far away. That's the nice part of that.
So, in the time that since 1977 to now, what are some of the things, Aaron, that surprised you about Cabo and the whole Baja?
I was surprised today. I didn't know of the fossils and the geology of it. My wife is fascinated with those things, and now I'm going to have to pick Greg's mind on where I can take her in the Jeep and camp out. Things surprise me all the time. The surf has gotten, I'm traveling a lot more Baja now. We used to only surf, in a certain region here, but where the surf hotel is, and now I'm up in Cerritos all the time and traveling Baja and finding new breaks that I never knew existed, and I just, had never come down here for that. Originally, it was always fishing.
Yep.
The outdoor activities are amazing,
And you love to travel, right? You even have social media accounts where that's your gig, the traveling nomad.
Yep.
But you always come back to Cabo I mean, how many different cities, countries do you think you've traveled?
I think we're at 75 countries and 6 continents. So we've traveled a lot. We spent 2018 abroad, and we were someplace different every other week. So, but Cabo's always been a part of our permanent base. There's never a doubt that in a perfect world we wanted a house in 6 different areas, and we could chase the summers or chase the winters or do this. But Cabo was always part of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Aaron's probably found when he's gone out and explored like I have, one of the greatest parts about Baja is the people.
Yeah.
And you go out to some of these remote areas and these beautiful places, and there's small ranches or very small towns. But the small ranches are my favorite because you meet these ranchers that they just love to meet, people like yourselves exploring around. And they take you in as part of the family. And you kind of become friends for life. You go back and see them every time you're in that area. And they relate to you a lot of the things in Baja that you don't know that, grow to become part of you. And that's one of my favorite things is the people, definitely.
Okay, think of like a interesting story of a local person. And I'm going to tell you a story that I personally didn't witness, but it was a friend of mine. So you think of one also. So I was in the Bay of Dreams, Bahia de los Sueños in the East Cape. And this was a month ago. And we were with our best friends, another family, and we're staying at a beach house, and we went fishing. And our friend has a fleet of boats, and he was bringing one of the boats from, I believe, mainland Mexico over. And he stopped in Bay of Dreams because he was having like motor issues, exhaust issues. Had an anchor right there and was trying to fix it and needed a part. And there was a local person, a fisherman, that pulled up on a Sunday and said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yes, I need actually this exhaust part." So you know where Bay of Dreams is. He and his son skipped a day of fishing, that's their livelihood, drove to La Paz, bought the part, drove it back, and like 4 or 5 hours later, my friend is thinking, he's not coming back. He came back and only wanted like 1,500 pesos. And it was like, that's like an amazing story about what the people do here. You got a story for me?
Of course. We've always got stories in Mexico. I think the first time, the first time I went into Bahia de Magdalena, which is, in my mind, there's a little sleepy fishing village that's only approachable by boat in Bahia, and it's really old school. It's really 1970s Cabo, right? There's no roads, there's no nothing. And I remember meeting this fisherman in the village, and we were all fishing. There were quite a few boats there for us, and him inviting us in to see his family and spending time with us. And then the next day saying, would you like me to come on the boat with you and show you the fishing grounds, and just and never asking for nothing. Of course, we helped, and we ended up sponsoring his daughter for school. But it was pure open heart, and you knew it. There was no ulterior motive. There was no goal. Yeah. It was just, this is beautiful. It's the old tale of the little sleepy fisherman in the village. Like, well, you could go and do all this. And he's like, just so for what? In my retirement, I'm going to end up back here just doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. That is.
Well, I've experienced the same thing many, many times. I've, in my explorations, I'm sometimes 50, 60 miles off the road in really rugged areas. I've broken down many times, and I've had probably 3 or 4 times where the same thing happened, where I couldn't get parts, I needed help, and the ranchers there, of course, they'll drop everything they're doing to help you. And, their hearts are as, just as big as they are. As big as you can get, and they'll do anything for you. I mean, that's the magic of Cabo, is that, and that's very heartwarming to anyone that's down here that goes out and does that kind of stuff.
Hey, thanks for being a part of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest updates. And if you're watching this on our social channels, please like and share. And if you want to be featured, or you want me to talk on a certain topic, food, activities, culture, real estate in the Baja, drop a comment. right, so this is the next question I have for the both of you. What do you think you know about the area that most people do not know?
What do you think you know about the area that most people do not know?
Or what do you know? What do you know about the area that you think most people don't know about Cabo? Because people think, okay, Cabo, there's the boating, high-end resorts, great restaurants, golf, 330 days of sunshine a year, celebrities come and vacation here. Okay, everyone knows that. What do you know?
I would say there's probably a couple things that most people that don't come to Cabo would never know, and that even some people that come to Cabo, they come for their, maybe for more activity that they have to learn. I mean, there's an amazing art scene in Cabo and in San Jose that most people don't know exist.
Right.
And until you go to Art Walk, and now we're doing it here in Cabo on Fridays and in San Jose on Thursday, you don't really know it existed.
Right.
And that it was there, and that there's all these amazing artists that are, showing their trade. I think most people don't know how amazing the diving is here. It's a world-class diving destination, and most people don't come here for diving. It's just, they come here to drink and fish and,
lay in the hammock.
And that's true. Most
Greg?
people just scratch the surface. They're coming down here for the tourist stuff kind of thing, and they don't go into the back areas. They don't go to the small towns. And a lot of people have been coming here for years. They've never even been to Todos Santos or East Cape, and when they go there, or you tell them some restaurant to go to up there, it's always like, oh, wow, that's great. Thank you for recommending that. And they're still only scratching the surface. And that's what's cool about the Baja is, you have so many different things you can go discover. And like go up to La Paz, go out to Espiritu de Santo Island. Some people never get there. They've been here for 20 years, even living here. And they go and see stuff like that for the first time. And it's like, oh, wow. There is more stuff. And it just never ends. I mean, that's how Baja is. It's the new horizon, so to speak, for ecotourism, a lot of things that people never realized they could do in one location and have access to really easily.
Okay, so mine is pretty simple. You think desert, you don't think agriculture. There's actually a pretty decent agricultural scene, especially if you go into Pescadero in and around Todos Santos. And, you think you live in a desert that you don't have enough water for agricultural purposes, but there are certain areas that it actually thrives pretty well and they export. In fact, I didn't know this until recently, but Todos Santos in the 1800s was sugarcane plantation. It was like the place, and it was heavy production because of the aquifers in Todos Santos, and they exported like crazy amounts of sugarcane. So
some of the remnants of the old buildings are still up there too.
It is, and actually the new development Santa Terra is one of those areas. Yeah.
Well, it's like up in San Antonio and Triunfo, there's the old gold mining areas. A lot of people don't even know that's there until they decide, well, I'm going to, instead of going La Paz up the Pacific, I'll go to the other side. And they go up through there and they're like, wow, I never even knew that was here. So that's always...
El Triunfo, have you been?
I have not yet.
Okay, so El Triunfo, just like an hour and a half or less from here. It's this mining town, super small, but super cool. And you'll be amazed. Actually, the Eiffel Tower, the guy that architect built that,
Gustav Eiffel?
Yeah, did the tower there, right?
Oh, I'm not sure if he did
I
that.
think
Well, the one up in, no, he did the Santa Rosalia. He
Is
built
that what
the
it is?
church up
Okay.
there. But he might have built something
I
there,
think
because he
it's-
did several.
I
big
think
stuff.
he did something in, right? One of our camera guys is saying yes. Fair? Yes? Okay. Yes. We'll fact check
Yeah,
that.
we'll have to find that.
I volunteered to go out this weekend and
Okay,
check it
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my brother went with my mom on a weekend to El Triunfo for a day trip. And my mom came back and said that there's a cemetery there and a lot of Chinese people are buried there because they came over in the 1800s to mine and they set up their families and, the cycle of life, some die and they're buried there. And so, and I've heard that there might be a resurgence of the area for tourism.
Yeah,
actually.
there is. It's starting. There's an old mission somewhere out there too. That there's a doctor here in town who wants to take me out there. He loves to go find old things and old buildings, and he wants to go see if we can find that. So
Wow.
that's interesting. I'll tell you one more place that's
Yeah.
interesting. Back in about 1988, I was flying out of Cabo, and we were at climbing altitude, and I'm looking down in the mountains just outside of Todos Santos, and I see what looks like a golf course up on the top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that can't be. How it's this green pasture about 1.5 miles long, half a mile wide, and you can see there's water running through it, pine trees. I mean, we flew right over it. I was just like, holy, what is that? So for a year, I kept going up there asking ranchers about it, and finally found one that told me, oh, that's La Laguna. And I organized a hike up there with a few of my friends and got up there, and literally it looks like a golf course in the middle of the desert. It's 7,000 feet. You're on top of La Laguna in this beautiful meadow, green wildflowers, streams running through it. It's like Brigadoon. I don't know if you ever saw the old movie Brigadoon.
Of course,
That's
yeah.
what it's like. It just like magically appears. And you can't believe you're in Baja. And since then, it's become very popular.
Yeah.
It's a really popular destination. A lot of tourists are discovering it. And that's one of the other facets of Cabo. Most people don't even know about. They've never even heard of.
I've heard of it, but I've never been.
Yeah, you got to take
yeah.
a hike up there.
Yeah. And can you do that like a day trip, or it's really
it's
camping?
A tough, it's a day up, and usually you spend 3 days, up and back, and a day to stay up there.
And there's actually organized tours?
Yeah, there's organized trips, or a lot of people just organize themselves. You can go on horseback as well, and, if you want. But it's better to hike. Say you did it.
Yeah. You guys want to do that?
Take the kids.
We should go do that.
Yeah,
No?
that's amazing.
That would be awesome.
We'll bring the drones.
Yeah. Bring the drones and cameras. That'd be
Well,
fantastic.
that's good. You knew what Brigadoon was. You did.
I didn't know what.
I love old movies.
So, okay. Well, one last question. With all of the growth and the expansion up the sides of the peninsula, where do you see the future for Cabo and the Baja? Greg?
Well, when I first got here, I had no illusion. I mean, when I saw it, and I grew up in Florida, and I saw what happened there, I knew it was going to happen here eventually. And, it got off to a slow start. But as, I was a boat captain back then, but as I realized that all these families were coming down here with the guys going on their fishing trips for the first time, and they started going, wow, there's a lot to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And they started buying real estate and not condos, but homes, and then that's turned into condos now. And we're going through a huge real estate boom with all those people realizing that, I can live here, I can be in my work from home office, I can be in an area where I still feel free again, enjoy life, lots of things to do. And if you look up and down the peninsula on both sides, in the middle all the way up or whatever, there is so many areas to develop here in an eco-friendly way. And in a manner that you couldn't do in Florida, like in the 50s, where they just plowed everything over. Here, and they're very sensitive, and it's great to the environment and doing things well planned and sustainable. And that's the kind of development I see a lot of that's going to really take over, up and down the coast, which will be good.
Yep.
It's going to develop. Nobody's going to stop it. But I think it'll be done in a pretty good way. The Mexican government's doing a pretty good job, I think, of controlling, which is good.
So, Aaron, you've been all around the world, lived in Nepal. You have a different perspective, obviously, seeing more areas than I'm sure Greg and I combined. Where do you see Cabo and Baja development, the future?
I mean, obviously, I see it continuing on its current course. It's going to continue its expansion.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, actually, I'd rather see it expand out a little bit than expand, at like downtown Cabo. But I see obviously significant expansion in San Jose and Todos. Hopefully eco-friendly expansion.
Mm-hmm.
But and then eventually, as we said, East Cape, Baja de Magdalena. I mean, I would, thrive to live in Baja de Magdalena You know, the weather's a little more
Gorgeous.
acclimate. The fishing's a little bit, you know, there's a lot of great things about it. So that's the theory.
All right. Well, I just wanted to spend a few minutes with some good friends, real estate guys, talking about the Baja. Until the next podcast, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ronival Real Estate and follow Nick on Instagram at NickFong_Ronival. Ready to find your Baja dream home? Check out the latest property listings at Ronival.com or findmexicohouses.com. Hasta luego.